Hey, welcome to the Cam and Otis Show. This week we got Rick Kaufman, fellow veteran, uh, vet tribe, vetrepreneur. I mean, you name it. The dude is out there and about, and it's great to have another veteran entrepreneur with a really pretty cool story joining us this week on the show. Great to have you, Rick, man.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And we've been talking about it for a long time, and I'm grateful that we get to hang out.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt, man. I discovered something about you this morning. I'm
Uh-oh.
doing my snooping. You were a tank commander in the late '80s, and the little tidbit that you probably don't know about me was I was a tank. I started off as a tank driver and was a tank commander before I switched to being a Cav Scout. So I just got to know, were you in the big fancy Cadillac M1, or were you like me in the M60?
Well, I was old school. I went through basic in 1986,
Mm-hmm.
and I was on actually the XM1, the experimental M1. I was on like the first tank ever made. So
Well,
I just got onto the M1s. They transferred the month before from M60s to M1s.
shit. Do you know what that means? I'm sorry, Camden. We said we weren't going to do that, and I just did it. But if you're old school, what does that make me? Because I went to basic training in '84, and my basic training, we had the M60A3, and then my unit had the M60. We didn't even have the A3s. That's how far behind I was. So yeah.
So you were the giants that I was standing upon the shoulder of. Put it that
Yeah,
way.
there you go. That makes me feel a little bit better. I appreciate that. That's why my back hurts so much. But man, no, I just love to know what about, and this is my favorite question to always ask vets. What about your military career? That one lesson, favorite point that you apply in business today?
If you're 15 minutes early, you're 10 minutes late. I try to be early to everything, and it's called Kaufman's rule in my house, and my kids know it by heart. So that was the one thing I did learn, and it did stick in my craw.
That's awesome. Actually, you know what? I had that problem. I call it a problem because I had to adjust when I first started in the business world, because I'd show up 15 minutes early and the person I was meeting would show up 5 minutes late. So I'd been sitting there for 20 minutes, and
Hmm.
I'd be all pissed off at them when they showed up, and they're thinking, "Hey, 5 minutes is still within the window." And yeah, but that is. I wish more people would do that.
Yep, but but now my kids learned it, so they are, yeah, Dad, we know Kaufman's law, blah blah blah. So
Oh
it's a good.
yeah, I grew up around it. You got to hurry up and wait, right, Dad?
That's right. That's right. Well, there's a lot to be learned from hurry up and waiting. Let me tell you, it's a heck of a lot better to get there early and have it happen on time than to get there late and miss it completely.
Amen, brother.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that you do, and I don't think people talk about this enough. You know why you get there early? You ain't getting there early. What you're doing is you're preparing for all the BS that could happen unpredicted between start and arrive. And that 15-minute buffer, depending on where you are and what you're doing, you may put a 30-minute buffer in there. But that's because of the unknown unknowns that we talk about in the business world, right?
Yep. Now, what I also learned is, like, when I got thrown out of the military the first time for being a drug addict, and I got back in the military, I always learned to get formation an hour early,
Mm.
and I always stayed an hour late because that's what the high-speed soldiers did. So I would hang out with the first sergeant and the platoon sergeants and the CO and the XO, because they always got there early, and then they had time afterwards. So I always stayed late, and I found out that's where I got the most education, was the hour before and the hour after our formations.
Man, that's a really great lesson, and I don't know if everybody's going to pick that one up, so I'm going to dive into it just a little bit. But what you did is you surrounded yourself with people that had already done what you want to do and had become what you want to become.
Yep.
You know, we talk about that with mentors, and Cameron and I have had this. Oh man, David, almost a year ago was on, and he's running, or he used to run the Big Brothers Big Sisters in the Tucson and Southern Arizona region, and that whole mentorship, and what a cool program. And I think there's more of that needs to be had, which leads me to my diatribe. I'm taking a long walk around the corral today. To the question I got for you is, are you applying that in your business today?
I always do. When I first started out, it never meant to be a business. When I first started it out, it was just a passion to help other veterans. And but then I somehow fell into the vet tribe. I've been there from almost day one, and I had to pivot because I got hurt about a year ago, lost my vision. I only got about 20% vision. So I had to leave my career as in the health and fitness industry. So I kind of had to pivot and find something else to do. And that's how I started the whole podcasting and all that. And I started finding mentors, like Travis Johnson of, nonprofit architect, and all these different podcasts. And I started, finding them to mentor me. So I'm always looking for mentors. Because I always believe that, even coaches have coaches.
Mm-hmm.
Even like when I worked for players, and in my previous life, I was in the health and fitness industry. So I worked with players from the NFL, Major League Baseball, WWE, but they always had coaches, and their coaches has coaches. So if there's a man out there like Triple H or LeBron James, and they have coaches, and their coaches have coaches, there's no reason for a small podcast like me not to have a coach.
Oh, exactly. And, that sets right up when you guys are talking about that relationship, getting there an hour early, staying an hour late. That's what it brought me to, is I think that was one of the biggest steps I ever made for rugby, was getting there early, staying late, listening to the coaches. And now as I'm coaching, that's the same type of thing I do, because I want to get there and watch them set up the drills and see what kind of plans they have going and see how much I can learn from it. Because you're not going to learn that much just in that window. And then the next level of that is, even if you are learning during that window, that practice window or whatever it is in the example, you're not going to get to that next level. That's what you do if you want to maintain. And we were talking about this at practice last night. If you do everything we're telling you as coaches, you're going to stay right here. If you do stuff on your own, you take that extra step, that's how you elevate your level. And that's what we're really talking about here, is taking that extra time to be a sponge and take that mentorship from other folks and see how much you can learn.
Now, one thing I got to say is I've never mentioned this to anybody before, but my son is a soccer player, and he was a freshman, and he would get to the soccer field hour early, set up the cones, do everything, and he'd stay an hour late. So he actually lettered last year without even being on the team. They actually gave him an honorary letter.
Wow.
Just for being there that hour early and staying that hour late. And now they want him to coach as a sophomore just by doing what you're talking about.
Wow.
That's awesome, man. And I gotta throw my dad out there, Paw, because his most proud award trophy was what was called for his high school, the hardest working non-letterman, because his best friend was the quarterback, and my dad was I think a tight end, and Dad would always be there early, help his buddy, and stay late and run patterns with him and help him and all that sort of stuff. And just like your son, the coach recognized that. And for your son, that's a great, man. What a cool way for the coach to recognize that potential in a young man. And that's what happened with Paw, back in the 50s, which is pretty cool too.
Yeah, it works.
Oh,
It
and
does.
the other thing I'll say on that is I think it's contagious. We talk a lot on the show, Dad, about, social multipliers and those type of things, what kind of effect you have on those around you. And when somebody's showing up an hour early to practice, once they start doing it for a few weeks, you're going to get other people. They might not show up an hour early, but they're going to show up at least on time and, 15 minutes early, 30 minutes early. People are going to start to notice that because it helps to shape the culture, in my opinion, of the team. And that's why I think those people wind up being such great coaches.
And, one thing I also put out there, as you guys know, I've been sober for over 30 years now. But when I first started going to the program, they would always say the meetings start before the meeting and after the meeting. That's the real meeting. And that the winners stick with the winners. So that's one of the things that I really got started into that whole get there early, stay late. And then I heard the whole Tom Brady story where he would get there at 4:30 in the morning, 3 or 4 hours before anybody would even get there as a rookie.
Mm-hmm.
And now he does that same thing as being the greatest of all time. So that's why he is the greatest of all time.
Okay, yes, you are a guest in the household, so I'll allow you to have your opinion. But, I'll,
Brady fan, actually a Miami Dolphins fan, but just
okay.
credit where credit is due.
I
Fair
mean,
enough.
there's no doubt. I mean, all kidding aside, he's a pretty darn good quarterback and pretty darn good football player. So, and what I think a lot of people fail to understand is that work ethic. God gives us talent, right? And what do you do with that talent in order to achieve greatness? You don't just show up and start throwing passes on Sunday morning or Sunday afternoon. Man, the workload that those fellas put into it is unbelievable. And I think a lot of people don't understand it. And Camden hit the nail on the head there. The athletes and in broadening it out, but just kind of using athletes as the example, the ones who show up to practice on time and when practice is over, they leave, are never the ones that are going to achieve greatness. Mm-hmm. Only the ones who put in that extra effort on their own time are the ones that achieve the greatness in their game. And that goes in business world too.
There's a great quote out there. I don't remember who said it, but it says, hard work beats talent that doesn't work hard.
100%. I mean, look at the number. I mean, we could stay on the NFL. You look at these guys out there that are, if you were to pass them on the street, you would never know that they were a professional athlete, let alone an NFL professional athlete. Mm-hmm. And they did that through hard work. I mean, 100%. That's what they did. And that's, they took that little bit of God-given talent because, they got 70% and Tom Brady may have gotten 90%, but they refined it and they worked on it and they built on it. And that's how they achieved that success. And what I'd love to throw out there at you is what are you doing to achieve that greatness for yourself at this point?
Oh, well, I'm the kind of guy that now I have the show that I'm more interested in other people's successes than my own success. Because when I met Gary Vee about 2 years ago and we had a little talk, he always said, that if you promote your friends 10 times more than you promote yourself, you'll never have to promote yourself again. Yep. So I'm not a big promoter of myself. So I want to be known eventually as the Veteran Entrepreneur Podcast and the Veteran Oprah, because I'm the kind of guy that is going to ask the hard questions when I interview people. So I rather be known as an interviewer than an interviewee, if that makes any sense.
Oh yeah. And well, I got to bring it back to the sports one, because you darn close to took a quote that, Dad, you told me, I think it would have been my junior or senior year of high school with the All-State team going into the tournament to get selected for All-Americans and all that kind. You gave us a speech that was summed up to basically, if you try to go get selected today, you're not going to get selected. No one's going to notice you. You're going to look like a ball hog, whatever it is. But if you work your ass off to get the guy next to you selected, you're going to be an All-American.
Yeah.
And that mindset switch meant a lot to me. And that's really, I mean, that's really how the way I like to play rugby is I didn't want to do anything. I wanted to help the guy next to me do stuff. And I think that's where, you know, my very limited, but success in the sport came, is from trying to elevate the people around you rather than focusing on your own play. And I think that's exactly what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, even like when I'm a big video game player, and I was always a big NBA guy. So whenever I played, I was always the guy that wanted to get all the assists. I didn't care about scoring. I'd rather just get the assist. And I guess I just take that toward business, that I'd rather help somebody else get their story out. And in turn, it does help me, but it helps them get their story out even more, I guess.
Oh, I 100% agree. I think that's one of the best feelings. But, you know, it's nice to go score a try in rugby, but there's something about getting just absolutely blown up as you're getting rid of the ball and then standing up, wiping the dirt off and seeing your buddy scoring a try 50 meters down the field. Like there's something, it's a very different kind of feeling. And I agree. I think I like that a lot more.
Yeah.
Well, I think what you're talking about is it's in your core, it's in your character. So it just becomes one of those things that you do. And when it becomes one of those things that you do and it's become your passion, Camden, here I go. I'm diving into Ikigai again already. Sorry about that, but you know what? It's a really cool concept. So I'll toss it out there for you, Rick, if you haven't heard about it. Ikigai is a Japanese philosophy about finding who you are. And it's a 4-circle Venn diagram of what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what people will pay for. And that, where those fit together in that little overlap Venn diagram sort of thing, that's your Ikigai. And man, I think, dude, you're pounding that Ikigai nail right into that 2x4 right now.
Well, you know, I did an interview yesterday, and I didn't expect the questions to come up, but I was a total a-hole all my life up until the morning of September 11th, 2001. And that is when I found out who I really was. And that's when my life changed that morning. And after that is when the whole mindset changed of, you know, giving back to others instead of being the guy that had the chip on the shoulder, that the world owes me something. And that's the morning when I changed to decide that, you know, what can I do? How can I be the guy that can stand in the gap for people that are struggling or that need help? So that's when my whole life and mindset changed, was September 11th.
That's an awesome reflection on that day, because I mean it happened to a lot of us in various fashion, but I don't think I've ever had anybody say that, you know, that's where I flipped.
Well,
So,
what the reason is, as you guys know, if you've read my story, I got thrown out of the military for being a drug addict. I got back in the military, but I was sober, but I was still an a-hole. I was about to be thrown out again at the end of September. But as we're sitting here and talking right now on your show, I'm actually overlooking where the Twin Towers once stood. And that day, we all knew somebody that was in the towers. So I knew I was going to be thrown out of the military at the end of the month. And something broke in me, and I became a broken man. I don't know what it was. Call it God, call it whatever you want. And I begged my company commander to keep me, and he seen something in me. And I said, Lord, I said, if he lets me have a career, if they let me have a career, I dedicate the rest of my career to helping people that can't help themselves. And that's when my whole life started turning around, and my mindset and my thought process. So that's why that day is, it was a rebirth for me.
Powerful.
yeah, that's awesome. So how did you continue that thread? You know what I mean? Kind of like what we talked about earlier, you know, that one thing you learned in the military that you apply in your business today. How are you continuing that thread and
Well,
helping?
the thing is, I was in South Carolina at the time, so here I am. I'm a Yankee down south. I'm a troublemaker. I'm a punk, and always late for formation, getting Article 15s, blah, blah, blah. Here I am begging for another chance. And they gave me that chance. And then I had to turn around and apologize to all these people that I offended. And then that's when I started to, get the formations an hour early, stay an hour late, help set up. I started volunteering for every little thing. You want to go to advanced AT? Sure, I'll go to advanced AT. You want to go to classes? Sure. And I started doing correspondence courses, and that's when I just tried to stick with the winners. I wanted to be a winner. I was tired of being a loser, and I kind of had every day that, because September 12th, I actually went and got a tattoo of the Twin Towers on my shoulder, and it says, "We'll never forget." And so every time that I took a shower or whatever, it always reminded me that this career is not yours. It's somebody else's. It's somebody that, jumped out of that building, or, I had a higher purpose, put it that way.
Yeah, well, that is awesome. I mean, when you realize that, some people, most folks, and I'll use myself as an example, I kind of look back on it and go, oh yeah, that's what I was born to do, sort of thing. What I love about what happened to you is you had a moment, and God, let's hope we never have one of those kind of moments that happen. But I want more people to have that sort of moment, if that makes sense. I don't want another 9/11. Let's please God don't have another extreme event. But for folks to have that moment and that ability to change is an awesome story and a powerful story, because people will be, and here I am generalizing, I don't like to do that, but sometimes you gotta, but folks that are in that sort of situation that you were in, on the 10th of September, 2001, don't believe that they can change. A lot of them don't. They don't see, they're like, this is it. This is what's happened to me. And what you are is proof that if you decide here and in here in that heart, then you can change. And that's a powerful thing and a powerful example.
Well, I think the three most powerful words in the English language is "today I decided." If you can use those three words, you can pretty much change anything. But sometimes, like Mike Tyson said, everybody has a plan until you get punched in the mouth. Mm-hmm. So sometimes life actually makes the choices for you. And sometimes you have to, be willing to listen to those choices.
Yeah, that's, a prelude for next week's Monday Moments newsletter. I was just writing about that. So maybe we are connected somewhere here, Rick. I don't know. I was just writing about that for next week's newsletter this morning before we jumped on the show about that. I decided. And for me, I decided this morning that I'm not gonna take the information being pushed at me anymore. I'm switching. Remember back in the day when you want that intel, do you want pull intel or push intel? I can tell you when I was down on the ground, I wanted pull intel. I wanted to get what I asked for, not what they thought I should have. And what's happened to me in the last 10 years is I've allowed it all to be pushed to me. From flipping on, first thing I do in the morning, turn on TV and watch the news. What happened? First thing I do when I sit on the computer, jump online and I've had Fox News as my homepage for 10 plus years. And you know what? This morning I decided I ain't gonna have them push me anymore. I'll look for it when I want to look for it, as opposed to all these deadgum updates and crisis this and alert that. Now I stopped this morning, so that's awesome. It's a great feeling to do too.
Well, one of my mentors told me, he says, his name is Ed Milet, and he's one of the greatest podcasters in the world. He's got like 3 million downloads every week. But he talks about how you shouldn't turn on your phone for the first hour and a half before when you get out of bed. and an hour before you go to bed, because it's either if you go on the news, it's either setting up your day for depression or it's ending your day with depression.
Yep.
So I choose now. I only watch the local news to see what the weather is. I don't care what really happens out there, because it really is not about me. It's Jesus 2020. That's who I'm voting for. So it doesn't really matter.
That's right. Hey, and by the way, welcome to the old man club, because that's what we're going to talk about at McDonald's in the morning over a cup of coffee and a McMuffin is what's the weather going to be today, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Well, and everything but the weather doesn't have an immediate bearing on you. I think that's something I've realized really this year, and kind of made that same type of conscious choice you're talking about, Dad, is the amount that it weighs on you to try to stay up to date with all that crap, really. And the amount of actual bearing it has on your life are so out of whack in the ratio. The amount of time that so many people in this country spend nitpicking every single little thing that's going on, even though realistically, how much bearing does that ever going to have on your life? And I've had friends who push back on me with this, and they'll say, well, politics does affect you. Yes, it does. There's a reason there's a system of government. I can get that. But what Trump said this morning before we got on this podcast is not affecting what I'm doing for work today. I can say that much with 100% confidence. And when you start to think that those things are bearing down in your life, that this gets into this little bit of stoicism, you're putting value into things that you can't control. And that's how you're going to go freaking crazy. And I think that's what a lot of people haven't realized.
Well, one of the funny stories is last year, the day after the election, a lady came into the store I was working with. She was, the day before the election, and she was complaining about this and that. And I finally just said, listen, lady, I says, it doesn't matter who wins. I got 3 kids to support. I got a wife to support. I'm going to be at work in the morning. So no matter who wins, I still got to support my family. So in essence, it really doesn't matter. It's not going to change my daily routine of me taking care of my family and my kids.
And, honestly, and I think that's something, and Dad, it's kind of funny you're saying it took you this long to get to changing the homepage, because I think that's something you told me earlier in the year, is when I was complaining about folks always asking, because I was the Army brat who moved down to Tucson, which is East California for a lot of folks out here. And I was the one person who people knew who had any sort of conservative beliefs. Not even, I'm not far right anything, but I was getting calls from guys I played rugby with that would just say, Camden, why did Trump say that? I got, shit, man, I don't know. I wasn't there. I don't know what you're wanting me to do. And it became this drag on my life that people were asking me things like that all the time. And Dad, you're the one who gave me this tool. I just started saying, I don't know, man. I was working on my business this morning. You want to hear about Verby? I got an event coming up. It's looking real nice. And I would just completely flip the conversation and never let them get those holds into me, because it's not going to have that bearing on my life, and it just drags you down and takes away that good energy that when we talk about entrepreneurship, you really need to be successful. If you're letting that drag you down, like you're saying, the first hour and a half every morning, if you're on your phone looking at the news, you're taking all of that positive energy that you were going to put into your work and you're throwing it away.
Yep, I agree.
So how have you helped your team, clients, your bigger team, to see that happen? I mean, to take on that, I guess, decision. I really.
Well, what I had to do was probably about, since I started, somehow became an influencer. I don't know how, whatever that means.
I'm feeling influenced right now. I can tell you that.
And and I have like 5,000 followers on Facebook, and and whatever. I just realized that no matter if I say something about Trump, if I say something about Biden, I'm pissing off 50% of the people.
Yep.
So I don't say anything about anybody, because that's not my whole goal. So I started to look at my page, and then I started to see there was people that were negative on there. And then I started to see that there were people that were positive on there. So what I started to do is I started to like more of the positive stuff that I'm seeing. And it's funny how Facebook's algorithm will push more of the things that you want to see. So I kind of changed my whole Facebook feed just by liking and commenting on positive things. So now I don't see the negative things anymore. I'm using the Facebook algorithm to help me instead of to hurt me.
I love that so much because it's something we've talked about some, where social media, and I would say media in general, everything is a business. That's a very common thing that comes up, the theme of our show, and it's about what you're selling, who you're selling to, all that kind of stuff. And the reason that the 24-hour news cycle and social media has become this, monster that everyone wants to treat it as is because we're feeding into it. We're doing the exact opposite of what you're talking about, Rick. If you get up and you want to see that crisis, you want to see the negativity, there's a weird psychological thing going on there, which is why people want to see the negativity. That's a whole nother rabbit hole. But when you want to see that negativity and you're choosing to see it every single time, they're going to build the algorithm around you and they're going to keep feeding you more of that negativity and you're going to keep getting sucked in like that. But that's the thing, when you really look at media and social media, it's a tool just like anything else. And if you make the conscious effort to rework that, whether it's unfollowing pages, what you like, what you all these different things you do, you can make a conscious effort of having a more positive impact on that. I think we tend to focus on the really negative side of social media, but there's still communities out there that are super supportive. There's I'm a part of a few different groups that I could list off that they're really freaking good people in there. I don't know a single one of them, but I post a picture and I make my joke about the TV show that we all like or whatever, and we all laugh. And, no one gets into the politics or anything like that. We're making a conscious effort to be positive. And I think that's what it takes. And it kind of goes back to what you were saying of today I decided. Just make that conscious effort and you will reap the benefits.
Definitely.
Well, and it goes further than that, man. I mean, I hate to say that the algorithm that Facebook is using is like life, but I mean, it truly is, because, you have a choice. Do you want to propagate anger and, negativity, or do you want to propagate happiness and positivity? I mean, you get to choose that, right? Whether it's, I've talked about that 1,000 times, the whole smile thing, which, you got to work really hard nowadays with a mask over your face in order to get across that you're smiling at somebody. But how that passes on, the same way that, if you flip somebody off, there's a possibility that person's going to get pissed off at the next person and flip them off.
Yep. So like I said, it's just something that I rather put positive out into the world, because I think the more that you reap, the more that you sow. So I'm that guy that I'm always thinking, somebody will complain, well, it's raining outside. And I'm like, well, okay, well, great. I'm getting a free car wash. So I'll always just put the positive spin on it,
Well, I got to make a quick comment then, as we're talking about social media and putting the positivity in. I had a realization earlier in this year where, we talk about, when people talk about the evilness of social media, how we're all addicted to the likes and that type of thing. I think it's such an odd thing that we are so, I would say, strict in what we're liking on that. And I had this realization to where it's like just about every single person I played rugby with or I went to high school with or whatever, am I really that excited that you got a new puppy? Am I really that excited that you got a new job? No, but I started thinking, they see that, oh, Camden, I remember him. He thinks I'm doing a good job. And it gives them that positive thing. And it takes me, a quarter of a second to try to make them feel a little bit better. And I think that's just something, as we're talking about trying to, build a positive attitude and put positivity out. That's something I've consciously started doing that I think is an interesting little thing.
Yeah, I agree.
So where are you going from here, man? What's next on the horizon?
Well, my book is still out there. It's doing well. It's getting a lot of positive reviews. It's helping change people's lives.
Plug the title, man. Plug the title, please.
It's called A Hero's Journey, From Darkness to Light. Now, you'll appreciate this because you're about my age, that the opening quote is from Christopher Reeve, the original Superman.
Yeah.
So his wife, Dana, actually let me use the opening quote for the book from the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation. And it's just about my story, but the last 2 chapters are about what addiction really looks like and what a suicidal person actually looks like not what you think that they look like. And the way I do things different, and I've kind of butted heads with some people in the veteran tribe. Everything I do, I don't make any money off of it. Everything, even when I sell copies of the book, it goes to help out veterans that are struggling with PTSD and traumatic brain injuries. So everything I've done for the last 3 years, I haven't made a penny off of. It all goes back to helping others. So I'm kind of the outlier of the veteran tribe, because everything I do is to give back somewhere else. And now I started the podcast, which is starting to do well. And my goal is to make it the place to go for veteran entrepreneurs to tell their stories and to get their stories out there of why they do what they do. Mm-hmm. So that's my goal, is just to become the number one veteran entrepreneur podcast.
That's a great vision, and I love the fact that you're giving back to the tribe. You know, that's one of my passions too. And you know, when I shifted and finally figured out what I wanted to do when I grow up, that was, you know, of the three things that I decided, that was one of those three things, is give back to the community that gave me everything. Because that's the way I look at it. You know, everything that I got an education from Texas A&M. That's a piece of paper hanging on the wall. But the Army, you know, the National Guard while I was in school, the Army active duty while, you know, once I went active duty, and all those experience and all those men that I had the privilege and honor to work with is really what, you know, what made me who I am today, and truly refined, you know, the foundation and skills that I got at home growing up as a kid. But man, those 25 years is what, you know, honed it, and I wanted to give back. So I'm, you know, it's exciting, and I'm proud that you're doing the same thing. So that's awesome. Now, in that respect, because in case you didn't notice, I got my Green Beret. I'm repping my Green Beret Foundation shirt again today. I'll probably do that for the next few shows, just because you know, that's my passion. That's my tribe, my regiment. What's your number one? If you and I know you probably have a whole list of them. What's your number one plug? Your number one passion in the vet community?
To let people know, to let other veterans know that they're not alone. Mm-hmm. You know, a lot of times when we get out, like I was talking to somebody yesterday, I was being interviewed by a Green Beret, by the way, Chris McPhee. We were talking about how when I got hurt and they medically discharged me, you know, for the second half of my military career, I was that hard charger. I was that guy that wanted to be the best of the best. And when I got medically discharged, I no longer was Sergeant Kaufman. I had to find out who Richard was. And I kind of didn't have a mission, and I felt alone. And now I realize that there's so many other people that are, when they leave the military, they lose their mission and they feel alone. So I want to be that guy that's going to be standing in the gap, that if you're down, if you're depressed, you know, I don't have any special training. I'm just another addict, another alcoholic that's been through crap, that'll be there to listen for you. So that's my goal, is to be there to stand in the gap for somebody that's still struggling.
You know, Rick, what that reminds me of, and it's something I think we've talked about a little bit, Dad, but kind of in the athlete perspective, to switch worlds a little bit, is that the phrase, I think, is that every athlete dies twice, once when you hang up your boots and once when you actually die. And I think that's something that the more and more we talk with folks about transitioning out of the military, it always pulls back to the end of my rugby career, and having an injury and having that pretty quickly taken away from me, that this is who I was for the last, 7 years of my life, and it was gone like that. And you have to stop and think about who you are and what you want to be and what you want to do. And, of course, just like you're talking about giving back to the veteran communities, I've decided I want to give back to my rugby community. But it was something to where when people ask me what I do, I remember there was like a 2-year period there where I honestly didn't have an answer. It's a weird thing to think about now, because now I would say entrepreneur, and because I've, shifted gears and things, I would say rugby coach. But there was a bit there where I didn't know who I was, quite honestly, because I would just say rugby player. Like, yeah, I was studying agribusiness. I was in school. Yeah, it was whatever. Like you said, that piece of paper, right? Just a piece of paper. I was a rugby player, and you completely lose that. And I think it's something that I don't know what can be done to help prepare for those type of transitions besides just having these conversations and talking more openly about it. Because I think people tend to look at it almost through the rose-colored glasses of thinking about how good it could be, from the military transition or end of a career for collegiate rugby player or professional, whatever it is. People tend to look at it too positively instead of having those real conversations about what that's going to look like. And, that actually is probably be a good point for you to jump on, because I know you kind of had that realization with your coaching, that your military transition coaching is pretty much what a professional athlete would need to transition out of the NFL or the MLB or whatever it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's you hit the nail on the head, really. I mean, it's your total identity. Like what Rick said, he was Sergeant Kaufman, and then all of a sudden he ain't no more. I was Lieutenant Colonel McGregor, and all of a sudden I was just kind of government contractor, professional athletes, quarterback, running back, forward if you're in basketball or whatever, you name the sport, and that's their identity. And then all of a sudden that identity, whether it's through choice or not, is over. And how do you find that? And it can be a pretty scary place to be, and a dark place to be if you allow yourself to go there.
And now, like being an NCO, I took it very seriously, because there were NCOs and then there were NCOs. And I always took the NCO creed very, very seriously, and I always wanted to be to where I'm teaching you to do your job and to do my job so I can move up and you can move up. So I always took the NCO creed very seriously. I wanted to be the best NCO that I could be. And then, like you said, all of a sudden, we're no longer that guy. And what's our next mission? Where do we go? And that's where, I got into that deep, dark depression. And I'm sure a lot of veterans or even athletes, because we talked about NFL, the average NFL career is 3.5 years.
Yep.
So what do you do when you've played football your whole life and now you're retired at 22, 23, and you were just a football player. That was your whole identity. What do you do now? You're just on the street, Joe Schmo from Idaho.
Yeah, that's so true. And man, we could spend hours talking about that. And, the things that I coach, because I do, one of the ways I do give back is coaching active duty service members in their transition to become civilians, and, helping them discover their next adventure in life. And, that's my passion. If I could do that 24/7, I would never sleep, because it's just so important. I believe, not in a condescending or a entitlement sort of way, but in I walked that path. I didn't have a darkness to mine, but I sure had a wandering the desert for a long time. 7 years of wandering around, trying to figure out who the hell I am, what's my identity, what's my ikigai, to bring it back to my favorite little philosophy right now. But I want to help, and that's my passion and drive, is to help those service members in transition, give them that opportunity to not have to go into a dark depression or to wander the desert for years trying to figure out what the hell it is that they want to do, and just whatever comes up, they just do it and suck it up.
Yeah.
You don't have to do that.
I would love to actually, since as we've been talking about this, because it's something, obviously each person is different, but I think really between the three of us, we can darn close to answer the problem that we're laying out for people right now. And I know for Dad, we've talked about with you of the career arc of coaching, how you didn't realize until you were coaching rugby that that you were there, and that was very similar to your passions that drove you to the Army, the sense of service, the coaching, those type of things. And I've went through a similar type thing with rugby for me, that, and I think it goes for entrepreneurship as well. I was not Camden the rugby player. I was Camden that whole time. I was just playing rugby. And you have to kind of flip that mindset. And the reason I connect that to entrepreneurship is because I think the same thing happens, and I've gone through that, of failed businesses or failed business models, or those type of things, to where it's not that you are failing, it's that that idea wasn't there, it wasn't the right time. And you have to be able to disconnect yourself from what your passion is and what you're doing, and or sort of not from your passion, but from what you're doing, and really focus on what your passion, what your overarching theme is on that. If you fail in a business, it's not because you failed as a person. You can still have that sense of service. You can still give back. It just wasn't the right time for that. And I think the same type of idea goes towards this transitioning, that if you look at it, where most of the guys we talk to, Dad, most of the vets, when we ask them what their overarching theme is in life, they just say service. And they talk about how all it is wanting to serve others. And you can think that it's like, yeah, well, no, I can't serve people. I'm not serving in the military. But you can. You just have to figure out what it is and how you want to go about that.
I totally agree.
So I was going to ask on that then, what do you...
Tough segue there, Camden.
Oh, I know, that was a rough one. Well, here, I'm just going to give up on that segue. Rick, I got to ask you before we go then, why are you always wearing a hat, man?
Okay.
Because I saw you got a full head of hair under there.
Oh yeah, I'm growing the hair out. I'm trying to be like Lane Balone from the group. I want to look cool.
None of us can be as cool as Lane. I mean, dude just looks cool, don't he?
He's another operator, right? So
yeah. He served in my unit a generation or so after me, but we were in the same unit.
Well, the reason why I wear a hat is, and if you guys would have said you cannot wear a hat on the show, I would not have come on the show. And there's a reason behind it. It's not the hat that I'm wearing. It's a couple years ago, I got in touch with Chris Kyle's wife. Mm-hmm. And I told her that anytime I'm ever on a show, whether it's a talk show, whether it's a podcast, that I'm always going to wear a hat in honor of Chris Kyle, American sniper, that gave his life to help another soldier struggling with post-traumatic stress disorder. And I always wanted to give him that honor. And I always have people ask me about why I wear a hat, just so he doesn't get forgotten. Because a lot of times in life, things get forgotten. And I never want Chris, for what he did for this country and for helping soldiers with PTSD, I never wanted his name to be forgotten. So that's why I wear a hat on everything that I do. It's all in honor of Chris and other people that have given their lives to help soldiers and help soldiers with PTSD.
Wow. That's powerful. Rick, I guess my question on that then is, how much do you think that helps you with your passion? Because we talked a lot about your passion of giving back and helping vets who are struggling with PTSD and traumatic brain injuries. Does that kind of give you a good point of reference? Kind of like we talked about the tattoo, of going back to that and making sure you're keeping yourself squared up with what you're working on?
Well, it does. And, last night, like I said, I talking with another Green Beret, he was interviewing me, and he asked me a question I've never been asked for on the show. And he asked me, have I ever lost anybody to suicide? And how does that impact me? And I lost a soldier that was on my tank. And I actually served with this soldier, and I served with his father. And I promised the father I would always look after his son. And me and the son were talking about, issues that he was having. And then I woke up to the news that he actually killed himself. And that kind of broke it down really home for me, to know that, I can try to help thousands of people out there, but I can't help everybody. So when I put on the hat every day, it's kind of like saying, all right, you have a fresh day to help somebody today.
Man, I just wear a hat because I like to wear a hat. Now I'm like,
because you're bald and old, man.
That too. But that that story, that is such a tough story, uh, the, it's kind of that survivor's guilt sort of thing. And I'm no psychologist and haven't dove into that, but, having dealt with suicide, in my life also, it's, what folks like us that want to help people, when that happens, we feel the burden of, could I have done one more thing? What was, should I have asked one more question? Should I have done one more phone call? Whatever those things are. And the truth is, man, I, I don't think, I mean, you can't carry that burden, because if you carry that burden, that puts you into a dark place.
Well, can I tell a little story?
Please.
It'll just take a second, but it kind of puts it all in perspective for me. There's a little man, older man walking on the beach, and he sees a little boy walking the beach and picking up the little critters and throwing them back in the ocean. And he's watching this little boy doing this for a half hour, 45 minutes. And he walked up to the little boy and he said, why are you, throwing them back? He's like, there's millions of them out here. He's like, you can't save them all. And the little boy looked down at the little crab, and there was a tear coming out of his eye. And the little boy said, sir, I can't help everyone, but you see this little crab? I just changed its whole life by throwing it back in the water. Mm-hmm. So that's when I think, I'm just helping out with that one person. I can't change everybody. I can't save everybody. But if I can save that one, then I've actually changed the world somehow.
That's right.
Yeah, that's a great attitude to have, and I think we all have to remember that is that you can help somebody when you can help somebody. It's the Marcus Aurelius's quote of, whenever there's humans around, there's an opportunity to do good. So it doesn't take a whole lot. You just can do good.
Yep.
Now, since I got my Stoic quote in, now I've got to turn it around and so it's time to talk about what we learned today. And I feel like I've been really nice to Camden and let him go first a couple of times. So it's time to have a dry spell with Camden and put him down, sit off in the corner and wait your turn, boy. Because I learned, it's amazing, and been a lot of fun having you on and talking more about getting to know you a little bit more, Rick. And my favorite thing is the fact that how you've given back, and that actually, I'm going to take it back now that I looked at my notes and found what I was looking for. It's the fact that you can make that change just like that. I think that's something we all have to be reminded of every day, that we can sit here and say, oh man, I don't want to do that. I want to, even something simple as, hey, I want to lose 10 pounds. Okay, decide to do it. Decide to lose 10 pounds. Don't just talk about it, decide to do something. And you told a great story about how that happened in your life and how you've used that as a powerful tool since then for the last 20 years of becoming a greater man and an awesome person to give back to society and help people. So that's what I learned. And Camden, since you're still sitting off in the corner waiting, Rick, what'd you learn today?
I learned, okay, this is going to be weird because
no judgment here, man.
Let's get weird.
I'm a little bit off center anyway, so that's all right. But when you're in the military, there's the officer side and there's the NCO side, and we're always pitted against each other. And I never really realized that, with you being an officer and me being an NCO, that we can still have the same feelings of wanting to serve, and we can still have the same goals in mind, even though we were both taught to think differently of each other in the military.
Yeah, well, I mean, I appreciate that. And I've heard that from several folks, and all I think of is, damn, you never served with me. you know, because I've, yeah, a little bit of the special forces, but even my platoon when I was an engineer and I was a young second lieutenant, and I had a couple of my great NCOs that just took care of me. I still stay in touch with a few of them, which is awesome to throw back to those days. Yeah, it's an honor and a privilege to have that partnership, and that's the only way to be successful, whether you're in the military or in life, is to have that partnership with people around you. So, Camden, should I make you wait a little bit longer?
Oh, no,
I
that's all
think,
right. Because technically you kind of stole mine like usual, which is why I like to go first. But you didn't say the exact word, so I'm still using it. Rick, you gave me
dang.
my quote for the week. Today I decided, and I just love that, and that's something I really feel that one, and I think it's something that it kind of goes. Dad, you already dropped a stoic quote, but it made me think of the quote today. Today I escaped anxiety. Or rather, I discarded it because it was always with me, and it was my choice to get rid of it. And that's what that hit me with, is the waking up in the morning and it's making that decision of what you're going to do today and how successful you're going to be. And I just loved that. I'm big on. I think we found a theme, Dad. I think I'm really big on what I learned, just being really good phrases for things that I can repeat and yell at my rugby boys and stuff like that.
Well,
That's
that's
right.
pretty cool. I got a T-shirt that's coming out, and it says, "Today I decided not to become a statistic,"
Mm.
and it's going to be sold out, to help soldiers with PTSD. And it's all, like you're saying, it's all about today I decided, whatever it is, if you just decide, half the battle has been won already. All you have to do
Yes,
is
sir.
decide.
Oh, I love that. I'm gonna have to get me one of those T-shirts.
Yeah, yeah. Awesome. Well, Rick, man, how can people get in touch with you? They want to talk to you, learn more about what you do and how you help people.
Well, it's very easy. When I met Gary V a couple of years ago, I got to have a cup of coffee with him and talk to him. I said, give me a little piece of advice. And he said, well, make yourself a hashtag. So anybody that hashtags the comeback coach, it comes up on every social media platform, everything that I do. It's just the hashtag the comeback coach.
That's great. I love the simplicity of that. And Gary V is pretty damn good about simplifying things that, us nugs try to overcomplicate into things. So that's a great way of looking at that. I appreciate it. I appreciate your time and your openness and sharing a little bit of the philosophy and your life's lessons. That's
This is
just
fun for me.
great.
I'm having a blast. This is fun.
Good deal, man. Good deal. Hey, and I think we'll just go ahead and put a mark on the wall for our next, beer 30. I think we'll have to see what we can do about scheduling you in for our beer 30 whenever we do that next.
As long as I can bring a root beer, we're good.
Yes, sir.
All about it, brother. All about it. Camden, run us out.
All right. Thank y'all again for listening to today's show. Special thanks to Rick Kaufman for joining us today, and our sponsors, MASH, Military and Athletic Strength Hemp Oil, and Verbi Virtual Events. You can check out recent episodes of The Cam and Otis Show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, and check out a full archive at thecamandotisshow.buzzsprout.com. The Cam and Otis Show is on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thanks again, and we'll see y'all next week.